Come and get started on a new mission, a new direction, a new intention. Welcome to 5.8G Alive at Connections 50 Plus. I am Terry-Ann Joseph Brathwaite.
And I am Jennifer Gibbons Joseph, catering to all your prospects in the third act of life.
Economic well-being, social gratification, personal fulfillment.
Join us on Wednesday at 6 p.m. on Connections 50 Plus Facebook page, YouTube channel,
and on Gael the Caribbean.
Hi, good evening, everyone, and welcome to Connections 50 Plus 5.8G Alive. Yes, I'm alone this evening, but no Terry-Ann. I will tell you why after the show, okay? So, this evening we have a very interesting guest, but let me talk a bit about last week. So our guest, Bernard Shepherd, gave us a lot of tips and we spoke about the legal aspects, how we could put our house in order. And Bernard covered some areas that I just want to highlight again, and I'm only highlighting it again because we got such great feedback. And, you know, persons are saying, oh, let's bring Bernard back. Let's bring him back. The information was so powerful. So, yes, we will have him back, but in a different aspect. We're going to have him back on a forum that we're going to have. We'll give you more details next week when it's finalized. And on that forum, you will be able to actually chat with him, ask all the personal questions and get it answered, right? So yes, and he covered the areas like, you know, the take care of syndrome, covered power of attorney, covered wills, legacy, etc. Really information that touched home and had us thinking and going to review and pulling out our papers and saying, hey, this is what we're going to do. All right. So we're moving on to this week as we continue our program, you know, on preparing your finances. And we're going to bring on a guest and talk about, you know, the financial situation, more in terms of banking and what we can do and how we can protect our assets. Okay, so we're going to move on and welcome our guests. Okay, as mentioned, we have this special guest with us this evening, and our guest is Robert George. So, Robert, welcome to Connections 50 Plus 5.8G Alive show. Really lovely having you here. Robert, before I start any questions, could you tell us a bit about yourself and your background?
Well, as you said, my name is Robert George. Most of my life I would have spent in banking. Started at National Commercial Bank and ended up at First Citizens. Prior to that, I worked in the government service for a short while, doing some finance work with Customs and Excise. But I think my career started off primarily as a banker. I joined the Internal Audit Department at National Commercial Bank, and I worked my way up into management. Subsequent to that, I joined the business side of First Citizens and managed the credit card center at First Citizens. And I must say I'm very proud of that journey. Having met the credit card portfolio at about 75 million. When I left, we were hitting 1 billion in credit line.
Wow.
So
Congrats.
I would say that that's a major achievement. And one thing I cherish my life on is serving people. I always saw myself as a servant to the people, and I left with that legacy. And I must thank First Citizens for where I am today. So in a nutshell, that is Robert George, very outgoing, play a lot of sport. And now I plan to, well, I've been giving back through the years at First Citizens, having led the sports club for a number of years and doing a lot of outdoor activities. And that is what I'm still doing. And today I am trying to give back in whatever little way I can. So I want to thank you and Terry-Ann for inviting me to this program. And I will give it my best shot. So that's Robert George in a
No,
nutshell.
great. Robert, we are very lucky to have you because you have, fantastic experience in the banking industry. And of course, being in the banking industry, you know all about the financial in the industry, really. And within, I assuming, and I heard you say, Robert, you're retired. You don't look like you're retired, but
Thank you.
so welcome to our 5.8G. So you're within our age group,
I hear
right?
that.
So I know you're very versed and you will, really be able to share with us, give us some tips, give us some information that we are, our cohort, we are this third act stage would really appreciate, hearing from you. But Robert, the first question I have, and this is what I would say a bugbear, and is about technology. Now, this is in modern times, and yes, I totally see it's necessary for the bank and all the other industries to go tech. But the bank has now, in terms of the fast service, everything online, etc., has put up this system. But we have found many in our cohort, especially the older ones, we deal with the 50 to 80s, I would say, maybe those in the 60 plus, more or less 60 plus, who didn't use computers in the workplace during their period. And even now with the smartphones, they're not that familiar with the use of the fast smartphones, but yet still they are required to do online banking in most situations, even if it's just to go to the fast service, to withdraw cash or deposit. What would you say to those who in that category in terms of relieving their anxiety or frustration?
Well, I must say it's a relevant question in today's environment, but with the advent of COVID, you would have touched on it without saying it. It is the way that banks are going. Now, in my discussions, you may question at times whether it's a banker you're talking to, but I want to be as real as possible in my delivery, so that people may understand what they are facing and what the world is facing, I must say. So my response to you would take a multi-pronged approach. And the first point I would raise with that cohort of individuals, and before I get into it, I want to let the audience know that what I have noticed is that the gap is closing in terms of individuals at different age groups not appreciating or not understanding fully the tech side of business and more so banking. So I have seen over the years that I spent at the bank, the gap, a closing of the gap. So a lot more people are understanding what is required. So that is a good thing, but there are others outside there. Yeah, there are others outside there who are catching up. So for instance, my mom is going to be turning 80 on the 29th of November, and she is handling it pretty okay. So I'm saying, and having been a housewife for all her life, I think she's doing quite well. So the first point I want to raise is about acceptance. We have to accept as individuals that this is the way the banks, the institutions, the business places are going. Even if you want to order food now, you know it's online. So a big part of it is acceptance. So we have to push acceptance. It is here. It is not going away. We need to get the older folks to accept it. It may be difficult. It's a tough journey, but acceptance would be my first port of call.
Yeah. So acceptance and changing their mindset, be more positive.
Right.
Because sometimes it starts with that negative before they even make that attempt. They say, oh gosh, no, I can't do that.
Yeah. We would have some trouble inside of there because we will have those people who have eyesight issues and little health issues. So we would have some fallout, but I would say majority, once we get them to accept that this is the way we're going, is a good start. The second point I want to make there, which I find is lacking in society, we as cohort 70, 50 to 80, we don't lobby our financial institutions in a rigid way. We need to come together as senior citizens and really lobby our financial institutions to have more, I want to call it training for the time being, but know-hows. You know, you have introduced technology to your organization, and you're taking it for granted that everyone is on board. And while they are building their financial institutions to deal with the future, we should not be forgetting those people who have actually helped build the organization. And it may be important for the older folks to get together and lobby their financial institutions. What mechanism we use, I don't have the answers to that. Critical that this be an ongoing process where the older folks of the organization, however we do it, get the banks to have some training, to have some know-hows, to have brochures in terms of do something, if it's workshop videos, to really, in a simple way, inform the older folks is this is how you get onto online banking. This is what online banking is all about. This is what the technology in the banking sector will deal with for a simple savings account, for example, you know.
But actually, a couple months ago, one of the banks actually advertising training programs for persons within our age group.
Okay.
And they had the time and they were going in alphabetical order, and they were advising persons to come in and sign up. So I think it's already happening.
Right.
And also, and it is up to our cohort. Yes, I hear you with the lobbying, and I know TAP, the organization, has been doing some lobbying when it comes into that. But I would also add for us, our cohort, those who find it difficult to still feel frustrated, that the bank customer service, actually I know in my bank, and I'm not calling any name here, but the customer service, I had some difficulty with one of the transactions I was doing, and I went in, and that customer service person was quite helpful and had the patience of going in. So maybe some of us who find it difficult should try and go in too personally, and I think they would receive help instead of giving up or getting frustrated. So I just want to mention that also.
That is actually one of the points. So I will touch on that point immediately, seeing that it tied into what you're saying. I'm also saying that we need to give feedback, because what is happening is that the bank is seeing it from their side, and it's time that the institutions set up, I would call it hotlines, specifically for senior citizens, as we did during COVID.
Yes.
When the patient came, they allowed the senior citizens a particular line, and they weren't battling with the 19 and 20-year-old for space in the line. So again, if we have to go to central bank or through TAP, or I'm recommending a solution at the end of the discussion that we can lobby this institution, or even the NGOs. You know, you hear the NGOs talking about doing this or doing that, but I hardly hear them talk about, you know, challenging the financial institutions to do things
do a little more.
That will help senior citizens in the way that is required, and the challenges that senior citizens are facing, and actually lobby them in that direction.
Yeah. So we can look into that, or we as individuals could ask some more questions there. Robert, other area, and this is an area I recalled on our last show, we had our lawyer Bernard Shepherd went in a detail about, you know, the power of attorney, etc. And that brings me to this question. Now, for those of us who we advise sometimes to put a joint holder on the account. So because of age or in case of emergency, we can have that loved one or that trusted person, hopefully to see about transactions for us. And sometimes we may go as far as giving, that you may not be able to go to the bank for yourself, and they might give somebody the card or the PIN, etc. I would like you to talk a bit about if there is a risk to us of just putting someone as a joint holder on your account. Would you advise that, or how do you view that?
All right. Well, I would look at that. I would look at that question and deal with it from a twofold perspective.
Okay.
You hit the nail on the head when you use the word trust. And today you need to ask yourself, who can I trust? And if there's a trusted person in your household, yes, it can be done. But let me tell you what is at risk. First and foremost, you must ask yourself, what asset am I putting at risk?
Okay.
Yeah. What asset am I putting at risk? Am I willing to forfeit this asset? Right. So once you answer that question, and then you ask yourself, who am I doing this for and why? And is there something to gain after doing this? So in the banking industry, you can in fact make people joint, but there are two ways to conduct the transaction. The transaction can be conducted with you being a part of it or you not being a part of it, meaning that if you and I have a joint account and either of us can sign, I can go in or you can go in. If it's two of us can also sign. So I wouldn't be able to withdraw. And I guess in most instances, you're looking to see where is the risk. And the risk really lies in if the person can do a transaction on the.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's wise then, sorry, from what you were saying, Robert, it's wise then, and again, we're going back to age, right?
Yeah.
Where you may not be that active and can do the transaction on your own.
Yes.
So in a case like that, given that those two choices may be best where both persons sign, meaning that can you then, or I should ask this question, in that case where both persons have to sign, that means you would have to go into the bank with that joint holder?
Most of the time, the bank would want to have evidence of it. I have seen instances where people have arrived at the bank in a car, and
yes, and the banker comes outside, and
the banker will come out. It becomes very difficult handling banking transactions for people who are aged and disabled to some extent. It becomes very difficult. So there's a inherent risk, right? Once you get to the age where you won't be able to do things for yourself, yeah, and you have someone else doing the transaction for you, there is an inherent risk there that it can go either way. It can go either way. You can either have that person, as you said earlier on, a trusted person who will do it right. And some people I know, they go through attorneys, but again, you have to pay a fee to that attorney to get the transactions done, or the monies are held in trust for you by the attorney. And you have someone, or you tell the attorney, this is what is happening. How can I get some funds out, and these sort of things. But again, once you have that account joint, you run the risk of the other party, if either of you can sign, of the other party withdrawing your funds and using funds without your knowledge. And that is the risk. It is.
I'm seeing also the difference between having a power of attorney as against having a joint holder on the account.
Yeah,
I'm seeing now.
Yeah. The power of attorney, if you want to touch on that shortly, the power of attorney can either be specific or open-ended. So,
oh yeah, because I must admit the lawyer, Bernard, really went into detail explaining the different types of power of attorney.
Yes.
So for our audience who was on last week, or if they weren't, they can easily revisit that show and get the details on that. Yeah.
And one of the things that I would suspect that the attorney dealt with was that issue of being specific or being open.
Yes. Oh yes.
It gives a power of attorney. You can give away your house, you know.
Yeah.
And
so he did. Yeah.
Difficult to understand what the power of attorney is allowing for.
And that leads me, Robert, to the other area. So we have, I know a situation, and this brings me how many of us may not be aware of all, as you say, the fine print when we sign in a loan agreement, or when we're going to be acting as security on a loan, and different type, and even in terms of the type of bank products. All right. So you have the investment part, the investment type bank products, etc. Now, again, this is just an aspect of that joint holder question I asked you. In terms of having the risk of and I'm thinking of an actual situation in terms of penalties. And there was a money market fund. Let me just say,
right.
A money market fund that a client had, and the client has their daughter as I say beneficiary on that money market fund. And I cannot recall the exact situation, but something happened and she could not just change the beneficiary. What I would like in terms of these type of, as I say, the fine print and the penalties or the risks involved in certain type of bank products, how best would you advise us to, what should we look for in terms of not just the savings account, but other type of bank products, more along the investment type?
Interesting question. Because banks per se don't own mutual funds. Yeah.
Okay.
Mutual funds are normally run by investment companies. So I would say what has to happen? What has to happen? And this is the part that I tell you where I may not sound like a banker.
Okay.
When you are getting into, and I guess at the minimum of age 50 for the cohorts that we're dealing with, most of us would have our banking relationships already existing, be it at 1, 2, or 3 bank or non-bank financial institutions. One of the things that I know for a fact that does not happen is that clients do not, and I stress, do not take the time to read agreements.
So true.
It is past because the CSRs are being timed in terms of finishing a transaction. They normally run it by you and tell you sign here. What I ask people to do from time to time is look at clauses that has a negative impact at times. When you look at the number of times people may have queried stuff. So in a credit card agreement, I will draw their attention to, let's say, disputed transaction. If something is happening on your credit card and you're not aware, how much time you have before you can lodge a query. with the investment type accounts, it is critical before you get signed up. And again, it may cost you a couple $100, but in the end, it's always better to seek some legal advice in terms of what the agreement is actually saying and what are the limitations in those agreements. Most people, I would say 99.9% of the times, people don't read, they sign, and then when it's too late, they ask a question. So I will always encourage people to, if you're looking to get into an investment, it may be wise to take a week or two before you actually do it. Go into the bank, ask for the agreement, because they will give it to you, and have a good read of it. And if you're comfortable, then you get back and you get into the investment. Those of us who are already, because of the age group we're dealing with, most of us will already have investments. It is never too late to pull one and have a good read of it in the event that something goes wrong. So for example, if you end up being disabled and lost a sight, or you can't write, you can't sign your name for whatever reason, God forbid, it is always good to put it in place before it's too late.
But Robert, there are cases when the banks selling their products, okay? So we're dealing with the banks here. The banks selling their products. And because of the long relationship the client will have with the bank, especially the bank or the CSR will know, okay, this person going to retire soon or coming into a lump sum of money.
Right.
And by the time you get to the cashier, when you're doing a transaction, they will advise you, you know what? You should take that lump. Don't leave all this money in your savings. Transfer this lump sum to our fund. We have, and I mean, all the different banks, you have the variant types of money market mutual funds, okay? And it's nicely packaged. So they'll tell you, okay, you can put your 100,000 or 50,000, most of them have a minimum, you know, into this, because with this, you get X amount of interest.
Yes.
Don't you think it's the onus of that banker to explain certain things? For instance, how much of that money is really safe and insured? Right. You know, how much is covered? You know, you say, well, okay, if it goes more than 50,000, if anything happens, you know, you're going to only get 50,000, you know? Right. These details, that is not so much that it's not needed. At least I don't see the need for a legal person to come in and to me, that's a more simple type of investment.
Yes.
And many times you find that the client is swayed by what is being told by their banker who they trust and working with. And if the banker say, well, put it in this fund, you'll get at least some interest in it. But they don't tell you the risk. And outside of going for legal advice, what about certain questions we can ask that will help us make that decision in terms of what are the risks, what are the penalties, etc.
Right, and again, you're going down the correct path, and I'm happy that you are thinking along those lines. But marry that against the CSR being timed for 20 minutes, 15 minutes to finish a transaction. He or she is going to do all in their powers and their skill set to get the client as quickly as possible out of the bank.
Just sell the product.
Sell the product, right? And we have to start lobbying for banks to do and follow what is their fiduciary responsibilities, which is really to educate and inform the client to make the best decision, right? If for some reason, and it doesn't happen, sometimes you hear queries going to the financial ombudsman speaking about the length of time they're holding, or they can't get onto this, or they can't get back the money here. And it's not happening often enough. Banks need to know that it is their responsibility to explain in full detail, whether it takes 25 minutes or whether it takes 50 minutes, in full detail, the operations of a particular product. And it's not a simple savings account. It's an investment. It's something that you're taking all your lifetime earnings put away. And we as bankers, or I'm a former banker, I find that too often the CSRs don't take enough time to actually explain the length and breadth of the investment product to the client, and only when trouble hits, because most of the time the product, you will run your life, you have an investment account at First Citizens Trust, it run a duration until you want to repair your house, you pull out some money, you do what you have to do, and you seem quite happy. Only when trouble brews, you hear about they did not take enough time, but most of us don't understand the workings of the product. And a lot more time has to be spent by the CSR, as you rightly said, explaining what this product is all about, because it's not a simple savings account or checking account or fixed deposit where you run for a 3-year term, you get X amount of interest, and then the product is closed off. More time has to be spent and more dedication has to be given to the client for the client to be able to make a wise financial decision on their investments.
Okay, but Robert, okay, and I'm asking this again for those in our audience who are listening in, and we wonder, okay, so the bank, things have been changing, money is very tight. There's a limit to many of these type of products. Actually, today, was it? Yeah, this morning I'm reading an ad, reading the papers, and there's an ad from one of the institutions, and the ad is for senior citizens. The ad is for people 55 plus, okay? And it's encouraging, okay, these are our products. We're not gonna, there are no charges for this if you deposit X amount, no charges, a lot of things. So they, and there is a comparison, there's a chart showing, well, if you go with X, and without a name, but just showing you the comparison that you would have to pay this charge, etc. And if you go with this particular institution as a senior citizen, they're not going to be charged. And it looks really nice how they lay it out. But I know inherent, and I have a feeling that those who go in and are attracted by the ad and actually take up the offer going to fall into that same pit, because they're looking, okay, no charges. But when you check the charges, it's not much savings anyway, you know. Whereas they may have paid $5 on one way, you may not paid, but the penalty back in that might be something else. Right. So what I would like, what I really would like us to know is that, okay, when we go into the bank, outside of, because I hear you with the lobbying and all that, but I'm not convinced on that would work on how long it would take. So in the interim, where that may be a very good idea, in the interim, I believe we should find out what are the critical aspects we should look at in terms of what are the penalties, minimum balance, the risk, etc. That if there are some simple questions that maybe you just want to say 5 points that you can maybe able to ask, although the CSR might be very busy, but they also want to make a sale and want to make that transaction. And if they feel, if they don't answer the questions that they're not going to make it, well, you know, that's their loss. But I believe we should really have some guided questions that can be asked, especially with the investment type products, because our age group, with our little lump sum of money, we want to secure. So we're not going high risk, we go in safety, that we should really have certain guided questions that could help us make that decision. You know?
Right. So as I said earlier, once you're talking investments, if you know, how should I say this? If you have, and I'm asking you a question straightforward here.
Sure.
If you take a lump sum of money and put it on a fixed deposit at First Citizens or at any bank, Republic,
Yeah.
Royal, Scotia, and you place that 500,000 on a fixed deposit for 2 years, would you be treating that as an investment?
No, I understand the difference, and I'm just being basic here. So, I know we have the difference with savings, etc.
Right.
But in terms of the head of the average person who putting it in their mind, they invest in the money, not looking at, yes, investment is a risk, but looking more as they want to safeguard this money.
Right.
It is beyond their normal savings. This is, to them, this is putting aside for a period of time.
Right.
And they want to be, and they're doing that, they're choosing that fixed deposit product because they feel that their money will be safe.
Right.
So in their mind, yes, it may not be correct to say it's an investment.
Right.
But
it's an investment.
Yeah. You understand?
Right. So what my advice would be is to really understand from the bank, because most banks and non-bank financial institutions are in the business of making money for their shareholders.
Oh, yes.
Right? You have to understand that and accept that. However, banks do, in fact, and you said it earlier, will design certain products and align certain products to senior citizens.
Yeah.
Right? So one is understanding the product and the product value to a senior citizen. So immediately what has to happen is that we have to understand the suite of products that are carried, and what from this suite of products, what are actually aligned specifically to senior citizens.
Okay, yes,
right?
All right.
So I will just give you a small example of the opposite end of that. And I will use the credit card example. If you have a credit card limit of 5,000, you can actually use bank money for free and earn rewards. But there's a level of discipline that has to exist there.
Yeah.
If you use 5,000, you pay off 5,000 by the payoff date.
By
If
the
you
date,
use
yeah.
1,000, you pay off by the particular date and you actually earn rewards. The strategy behind that, or the mindset behind that, is that financial institutions will play the numbers game. They will say, out of every 100, 10 or 20 people may pay off. And the other 80% we probably will earn, they will earn a little bit of interest.
Yeah.
But there are people who will use, the 20% will use their credit line and use bank funds for free once they can repay. So I go back to the products. We have to go to the financial institution, whoever we are banking with, and get a full listing of the products, what fees are aligned to the products, right? And how can I benefit by utilizing A, B, or C product, and stick to it. What happens is that we come into the world of work as a youth, we have a banking relationship, we get a mortgage, we buy a car, and we just continue. And what we don't do, and I'm guilty of it, I have not switched any of my products from when I was at the bank. I haven't switched because for me, well, I'm still benefiting as a retired banker. I get some of the benefits, but what has to happen is that for the average person, they must look at the suite of products, see what charges apply to which product, and say to the bank, listen, I need product X because this is what I'm looking for.
Yeah.
Right? And in that way, because the products are not going to change, they're not going to, the bank is not going to open the doors Monday morning and say, okay, product A or B or C because of X, Y, or Z. They are going to keep with the products unless they launch a new product. They're going to use the products and services that they have. And with the introduction of technology, they actually allowing you, because they're moving away from this brick and mortar approach to more seamless banking. You know, you're doing everything online, so it's not a big factor. They don't need to have a lot of people visible in the bank, so that it's not costing the financial institution a whole heap of money to maintain accounts. So they can afford to give you online services and not charge you. But again, it ties back, as you said, as we said earlier, it ties back into the acceptance of the technology if you don't want to pay.
Yeah, I totally agree, and with that advice in terms of us, it's usually shopping around,
Right.
making sure that you understand if you're going to do what you may term investments, find out the different, at least go to compare one or two of the banks and get that information. And maybe, yes, you could discuss it with someone like yourself, who have knowledge about banking, who could, explain it in a better way to suit this time of your life, where you try not to be too, where you don't want to risk, get involved in any high risk type of product.
Yeah. And one of the other things that I wanted to touch on, and you spoke about TAP earlier. Now, I don't know the mandate of TAP or why they exist. I have a fair idea, but again, I like to think more strategic in terms of getting people like TAP to really play a role in the financial well-being of senior citizens and letting them understand some of the challenges that the senior citizens face. So for example, I'll just throw this out there. I think an organization like TAP should be challenging the central bank to really look at fees and all these things that apply to senior citizens, because if the government is doing it at a particular level, because I understand at age 60, you don't pay for your driving permit. You travel on the boat for free. So if at the governmental level, certain things are happening, why are banks still pressing full speed ahead, dealing with senior citizens and charging for every, while they may have some products and they will say A, B, or C, I think more can be done from a macro level for the senior citizens, and bodies like TAP should really be part of that process.
So Robert, as I say, I agree with you, and that's at a macro level, so I'll leave that alone, that aspect, and think of it, because we at Connections 50 Plus, what we do on these programs is, yes, educate and inform and bring on guests like yourself to help, our audience make, as we say, wise decisions.
Right.
So while that may be being done, I'm not sure, but while that may take place, so we look into that. In the interim, we need to get our 5.8 cohort taking action and being aware of what is happening and know how they can go about, protecting their assets and making that financial decision, because you're talking about even before retirement. So we have those in the 50s who still in the workplace, still have that earning power, still have certain commitments, looking at loans, etc., and have to see about their household. You have those in the 60s who may have just retired and still spending some money enjoying life. And then you go later on to the 70s who really, really have to look at the type of product. So that brings me into, and I keep looking at the time, that brings me into this aspect. We are told, okay, at this time, we should not look at any risky investments. Of course, some of us are able to still go into business. We're entrepreneurs. So after we leave the normal workplace, we go into our own business, which means we are making a large investments, and we also have to be aware of how we manage that. I mean, that's a different aspect. That's more under entrepreneurship. But what I like to ask you here as my more or less final question, is in terms of not putting our eggs in one basket, in terms of whether we should look maybe at two accounts, three accounts. How should we, what may be the best mix? And I'm not asking you that as an investment analyst, just basic in surviving in our little money we have. What would you suggest then?
I will draw on some personal experience and say to the audience that I'm not an advocate for putting all my eggs in one basket.
Yeah.
Yeah. You need to shop around, and there's nothing wrong with moving funds from one institution that I mean, I've withstood the time in terms of its survival. So for example, if you move your money from one bank in Trinidad to another prominent bank for a higher interest rate, there's nothing wrong with that.
Robert, sorry, let me hold up 1 minute for the audience. This, when we talk about the financial institutions, please note, yes, Robert is a former banker, but in the wider net, we do have the credit unions, we do have like unit trusts, we do have other types. So although Robert may say that, just think when you're shopping around, we are looking at the other type of institutions also.
And that's fine, that's fantastic, that's a great point, because in the financial world, in our Twin Island state, you have a lot of sound non-bank and bank financial institutions. Yes. And I support that fully, because you can get the same product, just the service may not be the same, and all the banks, all the financial institutions, credit unions give you the similar type products, and people can actually invest, save, do whatever they like with, you know what I mean, their wish. So
they can mix it.
Yeah, they can have a good mix. And most of those institutions now will carry a debit card for your day-to-day transactions. Yeah. So it's wise. So as I said at the top, I'm not one for having all my eggs in one basket. I suggest people spread it, but don't spread it too thin that you have pennies in all.
Yeah.
You know, it may not be good sense to do that. And at times, sometimes you may be using a debit card, and the bank system is down, and you have an emergency. You have to go to a medical. You need to do something from a medical standpoint. A credit card may fail you. Yeah. It may be wise to have another credit card in your wallet that you can pull and utilize. So my advice really is to have more than one relationship, which I fully recommend, and I would understand why it is important to have more than one bank card in your wallet.
Yeah. You know. And so Robert, we looked at, and this is all about, I mean, we are addressing the financial situation and how best to maybe manage, but more or less to understand your financial, understand the products you have. Look at the different penalties, look what they offer. And what I like, you said something about all the banks, all the finance, not just banks, and I keep saying banks just because Robert come from banking, but the financial institutions, a lot of them do have the products geared at, and you know, we don't like to say senior citizens, so we say 50 plus, all right, at the 50 plus cohort. And really, we should be aware of that, pay attention, and do some comparisons. Robert, what would be, I mean, I asked you a few questions, well, but is there any area you find you would like to add that I didn't cover or didn't ask you in this conversation?
I would really, the issue of technology and going down into that age group, I would really want to add something that may sound unrelated, but to me, my experience has shown that it's very much related.
Okay,
What,
sure.
what I urge people who are getting down in age and, as you say, 50 plus, to do is try to stay healthy with a lot of exercise,
no, that's important.
a lot of eating the right foods, because a lot of challenges that we face today comes from a health perspective, you know. And if we stay top of mind and we stay healthy, understanding how to log into online banking and all these things, it actually becomes a bit easier. If you are trying to stay fit, and because I have a lot of friends who brought me up in banking, and they're still, the fingers are still trigger happy. They're on the ball, you know, and they're the ones who are also remaining very healthy. So I urge the 50 plus age group to stay on top of their health. It is absolutely critical to every aspect of life, even doing your banking. You know, it is important.
As you say, your health is your wealth.
Your health is your wealth. That is very, very correct.
Good. Yeah.
Right. And in closing, I also want to let people know that it is absolutely critical to have your budget and to operate within your budget. Ad hoc spending is the killer, right? You see it, you buy it, you reach home, you don't want it or you don't need it, you know? So we have to exercise some control and ensure that we are doing what is required of us on a monthly basis, from eating right, exercise, and everything else will become so much easier.
In place.
Yeah, everything will fall in place. So basically, I had some other points on the first question, but I think we more or less covered it pretty well.
Okay, you want to say anything on that, or you feel we have covered it?
The only other part I want to add there, really, for the senior citizens and the online banking part of it, is that they utilize the younger ones in the household who can bring them up to scratch. They can also request, there are certain types of equipment, meaning laptops and things, that are designed for senior citizens.
Oh, yes.
That can make it easier. And it's not about surfing the world. Really, it's really about email management and also managing online services. Because really and truly, those are the two basic things you need. So don't be intimidated. Don't be intimidated. Work with the younger ones in the household. I mean, you could protect your password and these sort of things, because you never know. But at the same time, you know, get going with the younger ones. You know, seek help, as you say. And it becomes a little easier.
Great. Robert, I want to thank you so much for being our guest and sharing, because we have been doing this series here on, you know, managing your finances, and really we covered a lot, and I think our audience, I have learned a lot more, and I'm sure our audience got a lot of information from you, and now they're going to be more careful about when they just put in that lump sum in a product. You know? So I thank you so much for being with us this evening, and all the best to you.
Thank you very much. So I hope I have added some value.
You have. Okay, so that was Dollar Savvy. You know, when we had our guest telling us all more about banking, and I hope you all learned a lot. Now, remember at the beginning, I told you, no Terry Ann with me, and I will tell you why. But here is why. You know, at this time, I would really like to pay tribute to our number one fan, someone who has been with us from day one, Patsy Joseph. And Patsy Joseph is the mother of Terry-Ann, our co-creator, who not here with us this evening, and the grandmother of Mark Prophet, who Mark is our editor of the show 5.8G Alive. Patsy passed, and you know, with the passing of Patsy, it has made a real difference to us and our, you know, the fan list. I want to leave her as number one fan. And with that, I just want to go back a bit. When we just started, it was Connections Wednesday Alive, Connections 50 Plus Wednesday Alive. And Terry-Ann and I said, okay, let's create Wednesday Alive. And guess what? I remember when we started, Patsy was there listening to me. She was like our executive producer with a very critical eye. You know, she would call and say, you know, Terry-Ann would say, Jennifer, Mom, you want to talk to you. And she'd come on and she'd say, Jennifer, you all did very well. And then at that time, guess what? We now trying out the Facebook Live and now looking to see what the show would be like. So we made a lot of mistakes, but she didn't see the mistake. She was so proud of her daughter having been on this show, and she found we were doing so great, you know. So I mean, this tribute to Patsy is really, you know, bringing back some memories right through, you know. And as I said with the critical eye, let me tell you, this was the lady of class, talking about class with executive experience, who really know about how you're supposed to speak, how you're supposed to walk, how you're supposed to dress, what you're supposed to say. So I don't have to tell you after each show. You had a little lesson, say, you know, you all look nice, you all did that, but, and I loved it. And I remembered her telling me very early when she called me, when we just started the show. And she said, Jennifer, Terry-Ann tell me you're teaming up with her now. Patsy knew me from before, all right? So she knew the type of person I was, and I am sorry. And she said, listen to me. You see my daughter is very brilliant, you know. She's hardworking and she don't fail. She's a very successful person. So listen, you think you could really work with her? So, you know, I said, yes, I will try. She said, because it's not easy, you know. She would really work you. And I must say, Patsy, yes. So proud of her brilliant daughter. So proud of our show Connections 50 Plus. You know, all what we do, always got involved in all the activities. You know, she would look at the guests we're having and she would always congratulate. And not just proud of Terry-Ann, but proud of us as the co-creators doing this show, providing a service to the age group. You know, at the time I wanted to bring her on, you know, but so happened that time didn't come. So on behalf of Connections 50 Plus, you know, condolences go out to Terry-Ann, to Mark, to Ozzy, her husband, you know, to all the family members, the friends. This is coming from us, the 5.8G tribe. We really feel the sense of sadness having to say goodbye to Patsy. So this is just a very short tribute. Blessings over Terry-Ann and the family. And she would always be in our heart, and her spirit remains on our 5.8G Alive show. I could hear her saying, okay, Jennifer, you all did well. Thank you so much, Patsy. May your soul rest in peace. Thank you.
+50 tribe and followers from Trinidad and Tobago and the Caribbean.
Thank you for joining us on this Connections 50 Plus 5.8G Alive show.
We hope you enjoyed the lively conversation and look forward to seeing you next week.
Don't forget to like our Facebook page and subscribe to our YouTube channel.
We really love getting your feedback. Bye for now.